don't want to be afraid. Hard not to hesitate, but we can't wait to be the change. It's not too late, free from hate. Think of the future that we could create. Face the facts today.
Hello, I am William Kraft, your host for The Phoenix Speaks. This is our first ever podcast. It's our first ever segment. And I'd like to welcome our first guest, Kenjji Jumanne-Marshall.
Hey.
And Kenji's a local filmmaker. He's an artist, cartoonist. He has a long resume. We're going to get to all that. He's the creator of Frankie, which is a horror show that is broadcast. Where can people catch Frankie?
Well, if you're here in town in Kalamazoo, it's on cable access, but it's also we stream online at publicmedianet.org, and then it's on HorrorHostNet, HorrorHost.net. Yeah. And Bizarre TV on Roku.
Cool. So let's start at the beginning. When you were what inspired you when you were growing up to become an artist?
To become an artist? I mean, I just like to draw. I like to draw, and I liked, when I was going through school and being around other kids, I just liked the celebrity of being the kid that could draw. Especially since, with drawing, it was a good way to just not be bothered by anybody. Yeah. So I could, just sit there and focus on what I was drawing, and then when I was finished, whatever accolades or cheers would look, he can draw, look at what he drew. Yep. So that was always fun.
Sort of the isolation for the creation.
The isolation,
and then when you reveal,
right.
All the reactions.
The therapy. It was even as a child, I didn't realize this then, but looking back in hindsight, it's a really good way to be able to control your environment. As a kid, you kind of get pulled in a lot of different directions. But if you find that talent or that skill that you could really focus on, people don't bother you as much, or at least they bother you in ways that are easier to manage. Yeah.
So I mentioned that you're a cartoonist. What are some of the cartoons that you've worked on or that you have done?
Well, my stuff, independently, I did a book called Witch Doctor, which is probably what I was most known for, and that was probably about a good 10-year run, like at the end of the 90s and into like 2010 or so.
Okay.
That was what we call a black comic book. There is a subset of, there's mainstream comics, then there's indie comics, and then there's an even smaller subset called black comics, which are comic books created by black authors, black artists about, the black community, that sort of thing. And so this was a project that I did for that genre. Because I had been inspired by other books in that genre, a book most specifically called Brother Man, which was one of my favorite comic books coming up.
Okay.
I read X-Men, all of that stuff, but Brother Man was a comic book that really spoke to me because it was unique. It was very different from the standard guy in tights, cape, that sort of thing, which it went through a period in comics where that stuff was really just kind of cliche, even in and of itself. And from that, the X-Men kind of came out as something a little bit different, but I still wanted something even more different. And Brother Man was just a lot more grounded in what I knew as reality. So it was something to emulate.
So one thing that I've noticed about artists, you say cartoon, filmmaker, all these other things that we undertake as we go. Occasional actor. Kenji appears in our film, Hello World on Baddie, as Lucius Fox. And has the best line in the whole movie.
I hope to reprise that role. That was a good role. It was a fun role.
Well, anyway, do you ever get like a creative request that you say, oh, that's too difficult or that's too hard, or do you always try to find a way to address that?
Not yet. I'll give it a try. There are things that I can admit that just aren't in my wheelhouse or aren't in my my skill set, but I'll still try it anyway. One of the things, like, I do children's books every now and then, but children's books become very involved, and given the directions that my career has gone in the past 10, 15 years, doing horror stuff, doing grindhouse stuff, I just found it hard to do that type of stuff and then kind of go to the polar opposite and do a children's book. So I had to kind of stay away from that stuff. And no offense to people who do children's books or even anybody who wants me to do a children's book. It's just hard to go from, you know, light and fluffy to dark and bloody.
No, I completely understand because, like, we occasionally from the team of creative people that we work with get suggestions in to do a short. And we had one person who wanted to do a children's short, and I'm like, "Are you serious?
Right?
You want the people to do the Batman dick jokes to make the children's short?
Right?
So,
right.
No, so you know, and I think it's important to know where those lines exist. But that brings us to your filmmaking. Would you like to talk a little bit about some of the films that you guys have planned, or some things you have out there? Or?
Sure. I mean, and let's back up, and let me explain what Frankie is and how Frankie came to be. When I realized that there was a cable access center here in Kalamazoo, and that they had access to computers, access to a green screen room, access to HD cameras, et cetera, I realized I needed to make something because that stuff is free. And, well, not free because I pay taxes, and that's what my taxes are for. So I went into that institution trying to figure out what is it that I'm going to do to put something on the air. Because for me, I realized, well, okay, I can draw, I can animate, but I don't really know how to make a film. I mean, I've been doing video stuff all my life, and I've been kind of amateur editing stuff all my life. But here's an opportunity for me to actually go in there and really learn some stuff, like on my own for the most part. Because I mean, they do a class here or there, but you know, it's all kind of hands-on kind of training. So for me, Frankie was a project that I created so that I could learn how to edit a film, how to film stuff, how to use a green screen studio, et cetera, et cetera. So over the course of 3 years, that's what Frankie became. Originally, Frankie was just internet clips and short films that I found from filmmakers in the area and everywhere that I had to kind of piece together. And my editing process was like, okay, so I need to figure out how to put all this stuff together in an hour show and make it work. Yeah. And then once I had that set down, then I was like, okay, well, let's get a host in there. Let's cast a host or cast characters, and then that became part of the process. Second season, we had the host, and we were filming host segments. So.
Yeah, cool. So the one question that I always ask everybody, well, always is our first show, but the one question that I'm always going to ask everybody,
setting the trend.
The one question that we're always going to ask is, if you had advice to somebody who is an up-and-coming artist or an up-and-coming filmmaker or up-and-coming writer or anything, what would that advice be?
Advice. I would just say off the top of my head, I mean, one, know that you're not going to get rich doing this. Yep. And two, if you're doing it right, you're going to spend money. Yeah. Like, luckily, PMN, Public Media Network, is a very low cost opportunity. I don't have to pay for the studio. I don't have to pay for the equipment. So that kind of really lowers how expensive it is. But if you're really trying to put something out there and you're not just messing around in front of a camera, you're gonna spend some money. So know what you're willing to, like, know what your budget is, know what you're willing to really put into this, and don't be like me. Like, I have kind of an open-ended, indefinite commitment to this project. Yeah. Probably not a good idea. You should probably set a date or a timeline for it and say, okay, I'm going to do this until, December of this year or March of whatever that timeline is going to be. Just have a hard stop so you can at least have a point where you can kind of evaluate what you're doing and evaluate what you've done and
Yep.
and figure out whether or not you want to keep doing it. Especially since, like, if you're like, I've always been a kind of a lone wolf, especially doing comic books and stuff, and that's kind of how I went into Frankie. Was kind of, oh, I'm gonna do it all myself. Wrong. You've got to involve other people to do it with you.
Yeah.
And depending on how long your project is going to be, how long a commitment you're making, you can't always count on the people that you're working with. And this is no offense to them. You can't always count on them to be as committed for that length of time.
Yep.
Luckily, I've got some people that have stuck with me for 3 years. But, you know, at any point, Esther could have gotten a job in Colorado and would have had to gone, you know, I can't stop that. Even if I am paying people to kind of participate in the project, I'm not paying people enough to lock them out of other opportunities. I can't keep you from moving, nor would I want to.
Yeah.
So just know what your commitments are, and know what commitments you would require of other people.
Yeah, and I think it's important because we always talk about the auteur, the one guy that does it all. In film especially, no one does it all themselves.
No,
you have to have a group of committed people who are really into it. And the one piece of advice, like someone asked me the other day, what piece of advice would you have for somebody? And I'd like to get your reaction on this. I think the piece of advice I'd give to somebody is go out and make your film, go out and do your play, write your book, create your collection of poetry, do your play, whatever, create your comic book. But no, the first couple are going to be horrible.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
you're going to be humiliated.
Definitely.
And if you're not willing to be humiliated, you're never going to get it any better. But you have to be able to look back at it and say, this is what was good. Because even something that you don't think was good at all has great parts to it. And you have to concentrate on those parts and then throw those parts that don't work out.
Yeah, you got to work towards a finish. You got to work towards getting something done. And that was kind of one of the intentions behind doing Frankie and having it, you know, being broadcast on cable access. I knew, okay, it's got to be on Friday, and you got to have a new episode, you know, at least new episodes a month. So it was kind of, it compelled me to meet those deadlines. Because I'm kind of a perfectionist in terms of my art. And in some respects, some of the things that I do, you won't see until I'm finished with them. You won't see until they're absolutely perfect in my mind, which is a really high bar for me to meet. But what I wanted to build with Frankie was something that I can put out as is and be like, okay, it's done. There it is. Especially under the, you know, the auspices of it being kind of a retro kind of 80s bad quality, low budget TV show. It kind of gave me a lot of liberty to kind of just, it's okay if the boom is in the shot. It's okay if you scrub a line. It's okay if you do those things, as long as it's finished, as long as it fills up that hour time slot.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you once again, Kenjji, for joining us, and he's going to be back with us here in a couple minutes for the Phoenix panel. Coming up next, we have Stephanie Skinner, a local actress, voiceover artist, and filmmaker, and Joel Young, a local artist, actor, filmmaker, writer. The resumes just keep building on here. So we'll be back after Shark on the Street with Stephanie Skinner and Joel Young. You have an experience coming.
Hello, I'm Stephanie. I'm going to be Shark on the Street today. I'm going to be asking the citizens of Kalamazoo the burning question: do you think storms and flooding in the South is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump? We'll see what Kalamazoo thinks about that.
My name's Corlin, and I am from Kalamazoo.
Ooh, she's a Kalamazoo native. Awesome. Well, our question today is, do you think all the tropical storms and flooding in the South is due to global warming, or do you think it's God's revenge on Donald Trump?
Oh my God. I think it's global warming, if those are my choices.
Okay, that's probably a nice, safe answer.
That's what I think, so.
Thank you so much for your input. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
All right.
My name is Robs, and I am from Portage, Michigan.
All right, he's fairly local as well. The burning question of the day is, all of the tropical storms and flooding in the South, do you think it's due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump?
I think it's global warming.
Global warming as
Yep,
well?
I'm pretty sure. Yep.
Okay. All right, so 2 for 2 so far.
All right.
Thank you for your input. Have a good day.
You too.
I'm Shark on the street. And I know I'm not actually on the street, but this is kind of, we're out in public anyway. But our burning question of the day is, all of the tropical storms and flooding in the South, do you think that that is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump? This question's funny, I guess.
It's hilarious, and if I were to answer the question honestly, I would probably reveal my political leanings, which
That's
as
what we want you to
a
do.
small business owner, I don't do.
Oh,
Okay.
that's probably wise.
Okay, if they aren't God's revenge against Donald Trump, what do you think God's revenge against Donald Trump is?
His hair.
I
That's
have
my opinion.
I have no idea.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Tell us
What
your
fun.
name and your
I'm-
business.
I'm Lori Russell. This is Nature Connection.
Nature Connect.
Yeah, Rick Brown. I'm from here.
From Kalamazoo?
Right, I live right in there.
Ooh, awesome. He's very, very local.
Yes.
Okay, the question is, do you think all the tropical storms and flooding in the South is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump?
Well, first off, to say it's all caused by global warming would be probably incorrect.
Okay.
But it may be contributing to the storms and the frequency.
All right.
Curtis, from here.
From here in Kalamazoo? All right, another local person. The question is, do you think all of the tropical storms and flooding in the South is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump?
I think it's accumulation of nature itself, global warming.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You don't think it has anything to do with Donald Trump?
Not
No?
necessarily, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm Stacy from Portage. I'm Annie. I'm from Trenton.
Trenton, where's that? By Detroit?
Yeah.
Are you a college student?
Yes.
All righty. So we have a local and a not so local, but they're both students at
Western.
Western. They're Broncos. All right, friends. I'm Shark on the street, by the way. Hence,
Yes.
the outfit. But anyway, do you think all the tropical storms and flooding in the South is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump?
Global warming.
You think so?
Yeah.
Are you 100% certain?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very confident answer.
I'm Sebastian Van Walker. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Sebastian Van de Walker. That sounds like a Star Wars name or something.
It's German.
It's German. Oh, so you're from Germany?
My grandma's from Germany.
Cool. Very cool. Did she know Hitler?
No, but my great grandma was in Hitler Youth. Growing up, yeah, in public schools. She ended up rebelling because her family is actually Kaiser loyalists. So, yeah, she married a librarian and saved a bunch of books from being burned. Smuggled them out of the country.
Nice. That's awesome. He's got an awesome. That was your grandma or your great grandma?
Great grandma.
He has an awesome great grandma. Well, Sebastian, our question of the day is, all of the tropical storms and flooding in the South, do you think that is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump?
I mean,
I love that you're thinking about it.
both, kinda. In a lot
That's
of
what
ways.
I've been saying.
I feel like it's God's revenge on all greedy industrialists, of which Donald Trump is like the figurehead, leader of the free world. One of the lead causes of ruining it. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you for your very honest opinion. Very thought out opinion. We appreciate it.
I'm Jake Andrews. I'm from Vicksburg, Michigan.
Vicksburg. That's fairly close to here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jake Andrews. Are you related to Julie Andrews?
No. I wish I was. I always say that. I always make that joke.
I bet you are, maybe, if you go way back.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Something. All right. Awesome. Well, the question is, do you think all of the tropical storms and flooding in the South is due to global warming, or is it God's revenge on Donald Trump?
It's definitely God's revenge on Donald Trump.
Wow. He's very confident in that answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I was God, I would do that. Yeah. I would flood all of his golf courses and destroy them.
Cool.
Yeah.
You know, I say that because I hate golf.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention my personal feelings about Trump at all. I'm not going to mention that, but I will say that I hate golf. So if God is trying to flood the golf courses, awesome.
It's a combination of hatred between golf and Donald Trump for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for participating in our question.
Short films that are bloody and violent, just like me.
Something really scary? I'm alive! I'm alive!
It's for a good cause.
Welcome back. Now you've seen Shark on the Street. I bet you can never guess who the shark is. Well, if you just wait for the credits, you'll find out. Now I'm joined by Joel Young, local artist, actor, writer, everything, and Stephanie Skinner. She's in the local area. She's a voiceover artist. She's done a couple books, audio books. She's a extremely talented actress. She's a filmmaker, the one that created a Sharky short, which is one of my favorite short films of all time.
Wow, that's quite a compliment.
And they're here joining me. There are also two actors who appear in Queen of the City, our film that's coming out in April. And they play Miriam Wayne, the matriarch of the Wayne family, and Theopolis, Porcum, Amore, Galvan, Dumas.
I didn't
who is
the full name.
Who is the patriarch of the Dumas clan, which
Dumas.
So I just want to thank you guys for taking the time for joining me here
We're happy to be
on
here.
our premiere episode. And we'll start with Stephanie. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how this all began for you, that would be wonderful.
Well, I'm Stephanie. I live in South Haven. My day job, the one that pays the bills right now, is I substitute teach. How did I get into all this? Well, I connected with Phoenix Reborn Films about 4 years ago, and that was through Jim Keeson, who he's playing Sal Corleone in Queen of the City, right?
He plays in Two Houses Divided. Sal doesn't appear in Queen of the City. He
plays Sal Corleone in Two Houses Divided, and he played Sal Corleone in La Squatch, right?
Yep.
And he was Iceman in The Iceman Cometh. But I did a short film with Jim a few years ago, and he put it in your premiere, your showing of La Squatch.
The Nest, it's an awesome film.
And then that's when I connected with you, and then you've kept me pretty busy for the last 4 years, which I'm grateful for. If we were to go way back, I first started acting seriously as an adult, what year is it, 13 years ago, which is crazy because I'm only 29, so I was pretty young when I got back into it. I kind of was just getting my toes in the water when I first started, and then when I decided that I really liked it, I began to pursue it a little more aggressively. But I can say that working with Phoenix Reborn Films has been, thus far, the highlight of my acting career.
Wow. We are humbled because you're an extremely talented actress, and we're grateful for everything that you've always added to our films, and just your presence and serving as a member of our board and everything. It's just been great, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's been an honor to do so.
And now we've talked to Theopolis.
Theopolis.
Otherwise known as Joel.
Sorry. Method actors.
Am I Theopolis playing Joel? Or
no, you're Joel here. For the sake of this, you're Joel.
That's the question. Which came first?
Yeah, I'm pretty confused, Phil.
That's Bruce.
Oh, yeah. See?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Joel Young. I am a very creatively driven person. I started out pursuing writing more than anything else, and then I met Jim Keeson, who Stephanie mentioned, and I started doing some acting with him, and he's the one that actually got me involved with Phoenix Reborn Films as well, because
it's all his fault. He's responsible for a lot of things.
Yeah, we should have Jim here.
He's actually on our 3rd episode.
Is he?
Yeah, he's going to appear on our 3rd episode.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, something to look forward to.
Yep.
The person who is responsible for this.
Right.
So, Joel, I want to start off by saying that you're acting as Theo. Like, you've done parts in the past for us, but I think with Theo, you've taken it to a new level. Like, when we were shooting the scene down there when you were meeting with Dickhead and her assistant.
Yeah.
It was the place you've taken Theo is a place I don't think, even if you watch the other representation of Theo Gallivan, which is on Gotham, I think that you've taken the character in a lot more interesting direction, and not just because of the Kentucky gentleman flair that you bring to it, but I really think that you've taken the character in a new, and the same goes for Stephanie, who had the unique ability with Aunt Miriam to basically take a new character, Anne of Bruce Wayne, and really make a character that young women can watch and admire because she's so strong in her resolve. And I think it's something, that needs to be commended, and I think the same goes for you, Joel, with Theo, although Theo's not really someone who really anyone would ever want to be. Sorry.
Or hopefully they're not looking up to you. If they are, I'm concerned.
But as we talked about, Queen of the City premieres in April, and we're going to spend most of this interview, at least for this segment, talking about your experiences and a little bit about how Queen of the City, about the challenges that we all face, because it was quite a challenging thing to accomplish. People need to understand that this was a film that was shot over the past year and a half, all with people who were volunteering their time. And we shot most of it. We shot part of it in Canada, part of it in Kalamazoo. We even went to Lake Odessa.
Yeah.
Is that where we went to Lake Odessa, where Joel and Stephanie also got to play their other characters, the Kryptonians Ursa and Zod, which is absolutely hilarious. But no, it's just been a whole. What have you learned about yourself from the experience of Queen of the City?
Oh wow.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I've learned that I'm a very complicated person because I play about 5 or 6 different characters, I think, throughout the course of that.
Dr. McCoy, Theo,
Sam,
Zod, Sam. I forgot about Sam.
Which one was Sam? I haven't heard
in
him.
Casablanca Sam.
Oh, that's right. That was awesome. Sam was brilliant.
I'm also a shark.
Yes.
Again, I reprised my role as shark, and then there was one other. Oh, the date. Oh, I don't know.
No, that's in Two Houses Divided.
Oh, okay.
The Howard Stern date.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I've learned that there's a lot of different characters I can play.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm multifaceted.
So Stephanie, same question. What do you think that you've learned over the process of making this, and I'll go ahead and say, this really good film?
It is an excellent film. It's the best film ever, I think.
Yeah. So
I think everybody will think so once they see it. But as far as what I've learned that, confirmed that I still really like doing this, even when I'm spending a year and a half on a project. Yep. I mean, because we spent a year and a half on it, and I think I was on set like 85-90% of the days that we filmed. If I wasn't acting, I was helping in some capacity, and I still loved every minute of it. And I learned that I'm extremely happy and grateful to be part of this group and to have a writer and a producer who has the confidence in me to give me such good characters to play. And I learned that I have strength in me that I didn't know I had because Miriam brought it out, because she's a very strong-willed character. And so I found myself at times in my real life thinking like Miriam, when there were moments when probably 5 years ago I might have just walked away from an argument. My inner Miriam would fight it out for the right reasons, Yep. I've learned a little bit more to stand up for what I believe in because Miriam always does.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about just playing a role. It may be nothing like you. Like I don't identify with Theo that much.
Really?
I'm not a Southern gentleman who is possibly racist
and sexist.
Yeah, and definitely sexist, and like chains up Batman for 20 years. No, that's probably a spoiler, but anyway.
What? It's not Batman.
Oh, Bruce Wayne. Fat Bat.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know where I got Batman. I don't know.
Right, who the heck's Batman?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not that character, but Theo has a sort of class about him and pride, and I think that kind of brought that to the forefront. That brought that side of me to the forefront, and then, Sam, I think of as a very nurturing character, and that felt good to play that role, a very world-weary character. So there's a lot that, like when you act somebody out on a screen, it gives you access to that part of yourself, and it can kind of strengthen that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Sam, one of the best lines in the movie. Just forget I'm here, rich assholes.
Yes.
That's like, you know, that's like we spoke to Kenji in the last segment. That's the equivalent of his line in Baddie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of that line.
Yeah, and it was great. So, if someone came up to you, which I basically am, and saying, "What is Queen of the City? What is this film about?" How would you answer that question? These two films. It's two films. It's a two-part film. It's over 5-hour runtime. What would you say Queen of the City is about?
If I had to pick like one phrase, like an overall theme, I would say it's about love and family.
Same question, Joel.
I would say it's about finding your true path.
Okay.
You know, listening to your heart, and no matter how lost you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
What is the one memory from this whole experience that is there one that just sticks out over all the others? Because there's so many, you know, with 42 shooting days and everything. Is there one memory that just stands out as something that you think, when you look back at it and now that you've seen the drafts of the film, that you say, when people see this, they're really going to understand everything that went into this process?
Oh, okay. Well, I think as far as memories while we were filming, our trips to Canada were really memorable, not just because they had an element of fun in their own way, but because they were also a lot of work. I mean, we didn't sleep much those weekends because we were filming till 2 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we were up again by 8 or so filming again because we had to get a certain amount done in a weekend, you know, because Alexandra was there and we had to get her scenes done while we were there. And I think when people see all those different locations that we've included to really add some depth to the visuals of it, I think they're going to really appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Is there something that you think that the audience is really going to jump onto, Joel, and really say, this is what makes this is what I'm not going to forget this film? Is there something you think that's inside of it that people are going to hold on to?
I like the scene where Bruce is going nuts and stabbing pictures of clowns.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that it just shows how much at a breaking point he is, and it's funny too at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we need to say that there's parts of this film that are very funny.
Mm-hmm.
There's parts of it that are very serious. Yeah. It's a good mixed bag of funny and serious. There's some very serious things.
Yeah, and I think that's one that's both, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, but it's also very serious because Bruce has been driven to that point where he's that unstable, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, what other parts?
I also think that sequence of scenes where I'm trying not to say too much for fear of spoiling things, but the bathtub scene, I guess,
Yep.
with you and Alex, you and Silver. They're not in the bathtub together. Although if that's your thing, they might do that. I don't know. I'm trying not to give away too much, but entice you to see the movie. Anyway, the bathtub scene is it's got the element of parody because we know what you were trying to parody, but it also has an element of seriousness, and there's romance there, and it kind of culminates the whole what Brilver we're trying to accomplish the whole film, you know. It's kind of the bow on the package for Brilver.
Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap this up and go into our panel here. But before we do that, I would like for you guys to look at our camera and first say something as Stephanie, something about if you feel there's an artist out there who's struggling, something to encourage them. And then I want you to say a message as your character.
Okay, as Aunt Miriam?
As Aunt Miriam.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can be any character. So if you don't want to be Theopolis, you can be any character.
Okay. Well, as Stephanie, my message to the artists who are struggling, I would say if you're struggling, you're feeling like you want to give up, take a moment and step back from it all and do something to remind yourself why you wanted to do this in the first place. For me, for acting, it's watching TV and movies that I love, because I grew up loving TV and loving movies, and I can watch shows that I loved in my childhood, or I can watch new shows that I fall in love with, and that gives me new inspiration to continue doing this. Now, as Aunt Miriam, wooden spoon right here. Okay, you lazy assholes, get up off your butt and do your thing. I've seen people who were nothing and thought they could accomplish nothing. They gave it a try and they have conquered the freaking world. So just do it. Come on, get up off the couch and do it.
And Joel?
Yeah, as far as something I would say
to someone who's out there who's really feeling like, what's the point to this?
Yeah.
And they're an artist and they just might feel like giving up.
Yeah. To them, I would say, I mean, it's kind of the same thing you said. You have to really think about why you're doing it and what your core values are, and what it is that you want to leave in this world or put out in the world. Not necessarily leave, but just put out there. What are you trying to communicate to the world? What are you trying to do to make the world a better place? And that's what I want to do with my creative energy. And if it's not doing that for you, then it might be the wrong thing. I've definitely I worked as a content writer and editor for like web pages and stuff like that, and it was great because I was writing, like, wow, that's awesome, but it wasn't sending the message I wanted to send. So make sure what you're doing is sending the message that you want to send. And then it doesn't really matter if it's successful or not, or if it makes money or not, because you know that you put an effort into something that means something to you. Yep. So, and then, I'm gonna go with Zod.
All right.
A much more
admirable
character.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And what would Zod say? That's a good question.
What would he say to Buttercakes if Buttercakes were feeling down and out? What would he say?
Oh, honey, you is strong, you is kind, and you is special. And something else from that movie, that beautiful movie, The Help. Have you seen it? Watch The Help, Buttercakes. See it.
Wow.
That's all I got.
That would motivate any Kryptonian.
So, pitch yourself, Stephanie. Where can people find your audiobooks?
My audiobooks are available through Audible, which is a division of Amazon, and on Amazon and on iTunes. And they are the first two books in a series called the Fina Fitzgibbons Brooklyn Mystery Series. The first one is Too Quiet in Brooklyn. The second one is Missing Brandy. Fina Fitzgibbons is a detective, a female detective, strong female lead. They are all set in New York, Brooklyn area. And they were fun to read, fun to listen to. Check them out.
Where can people see your art?
I have a webpage now. Let me
Woohoo!
look at my.
I thought you were gonna show us your chest.
I have it. I have it tattooed on my chest.
I thought it was gonna be the gun show.
No, I should show everybody that I'm in scrubs because I'm a doctor. So.
So what we'll do is at the end credits we're gonna put up where to find art for Kenjji.
Yeah, that might be better
his
than
TV
me trying
show,
to...
and we're gonna put up Joel's stuff. We're gonna put up Stephanie's stuff, so you guys can just go there and see the links, and we'll put splash screens up with each person's art and different things that they're doing, so you can go check that out. And then I want to thank Joel and Stephanie for joining us and sharing a little bit about experiences on Queen of the City.
Thank you for having us.
And we're gonna talk about this. This is gonna be at least a monthly podcast, and we're gonna be talking a lot about this film that has consumed all of our lives for so long. But just in case anyone wants to know, my favorite scene in the whole movie, there's a scene where Bruce is going off to fight the evil people in the big fight, and he's there with Red Death, and she's not aware that he knows who she is, but he knocks her out and then turns around and puts on his helmet to leave, this helmet. And it's just one of my favorite scenes, and the reason is because it has Bruce giving the I am Gotham thing, and then he tells Silver, you know, there's times that I wish that Aunt Miriam was right, but I know she's not. It just encapsulates Bruce's emotions throughout the whole movie, and then how he can't let her go with him for this final fight, which he knows he'll probably lose. So it's not a funny scene, but it's my favorite scene in the whole movie.
I want to add that he doesn't knock her out by like punching her out.
He uses gas. He uses gas and he catches her before she falls. It's not like
he farts on her.
Yeah. So yeah, but just watch the movie. There's a lot of excellent performances. I can't think of a single performance on there that is not excellent throughout the whole film. I agree. And as before we go to our Phoenix panel, I just want to tell everyone to always be creating. There's no reason that you can't accomplish anything you want. The first part of it is just starting. So as long as you start, you can accomplish anything that you want. You might not get the money, but but you can accomplish great things. All right, thanks. And we'll be right back after a Sharky short with the Phoenix panel.
It's hard being a shark on land, especially in the cold winter. Getting from place to place is difficult. Sharks aren't used to using legs. Most sharks have poor vision, which just adds to the challenge. Finding the right foods can be difficult when you're a shark on land. It's even harder to use tools. Normal daily functions are just not as simple as they were in the ocean. Getting a job is impossible, even in a stable economy. Even sharks want some fame and recognition. Persistency is the key in a tough industry. Even sharks get lonely and long for companionship. But it's possible for sharks to find love, even on land. But even love has its difficulties. Dating can be fun for sharks. But it can be hard to get good service, even at the best restaurant in town. So if you see a shark on land, lend it a hand. Or don't.
End of show panel, as we call this the Phoenix panel, and we have once again Kenjji Jumanne-Marshall, Joel Young, Stephanie Skinner, and me, William Kraft. And what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about some topical things in the entertainment industry, maybe locally and also nationwide or even worldwide if those type of things happen. And the first thing that we're going to have to talk about is how people get treated and treat each other on set. I personally, with our small film company, have always tried to treat people like everyone is equal on our sets. And I think that's important when you're making these films because people need to feel how valuable they are to the production. And when things happen like we're seeing all the evidence of things with like Weinstein and James Toback and all these other people, pretty prevalent in Hollywood, I think it's important to show everybody, goddamn train, respect. See, that's how we can show everybody how we're not cutting this. The train just went through. But no, but back to what we're talking about. I think it boils down to showing basic respect for other people. And there's people, and Stephanie, who actually spent some time in Hollywood. I'd be very interested to hear what she has to say about the whole thing. But I think it's just a thing about respect. And I hope there's no one who's ever been on our set who hasn't felt respected. And do you have anything to say about that, Stephanie?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can say that any day I've spent on set with Phoenix Reborn Films, I have never felt like I was not good enough. I have never felt like I was wasting their time. I've never felt like I was nervous. And I think all those things are important to be able to act and be able to do your best work. If you walk onto a set and you immediately feel intimidated, not liked, or not welcome, your best stuff is not gonna come through. You need to feel free and open, and to an extent, you do need to be relaxed. Even if your character's nervous, you have to be able to act nervous, so you have to be relaxed before you can get to the acting part. That's how I feel. And I've always felt like I could come to these sets and do my best work. Even when we were filming in the freezing cold in Canada, even when we were filming in 100-degree heat.
Here in this room.
Here in this room, or in Canada in the summer as well. I think it got pretty warm.
Yep.
I've always felt on these sets that I could do my best work. when I did spend some time in Hollywood, there were definitely some sets where, I mean, I was usually just an extra, but I can say the extras for the most part are not really treated well on sets. They're not considered important. They are marginalized. They often have to eat separate food from what the main actors are allowed to eat. They are usually paid significantly less. Nobody ever knows you by name, or rarely knows you by name when you're an extra. Even the crew that's supposed to be interacting with you, you're filler. And I mean, I understand that they're busy, they have a lot to accomplish, but I think at the same time, you should respect all the people on your sets. I can't say that every set was like that. Like, I didn't always feel unimportant. Some sets that I was on, I felt like I was treated just as well as the actors. And I'll say that one of those sets was Will and Grace. I was an extra on Will and Grace, and they were all very nice to us. We got to eat the same food as the main actors. We ate with the main actors. And I know it sounds silly, but that's actually kind of a big deal in Hollywood because it doesn't always happen. And I mean, the food, of course, that they served the cast and crew on Will and Grace was amazing. It was like going to a fancy wedding and having all sorts of food choices and things. So that's a memory I have of a very positive acting experience as an extra. Not just because of the food. I mean, I'm not that shallow, although I love my food, don't get me wrong, but just being treated like I was equal to everybody else. It was a good experience.
So Kenjji, you've run sets.
Mm-hmm.
How do you let people know as soon as they're there? Because I've had actors tell me this repeatedly, that one thing that they've seen on a lot of sets locally is they show up and the directors think they have to be what they think the Hollywood director does, or they order people around. And
Sure. Luckily, my perspective has been like we starting out we had very, very tight sets, very small sets, and a lot of times it was just me and Esther filming, or me and Esther and another person. So we just had a very close and direct personal relationship where we could just put it out on the table. This is I'm going to treat you with respect. And not only would you expect that from me, but know that you need to expect that from everybody else on this set. If you ever have an issue that is contrary to that, let me know.
Yeah.
And there have even been some occasions where once we started to expand the cast and crew, there were interpersonal relationships with other people on set that may have been fine between the two of them, but could very easily give other people the wrong impression. Like, I had other people coming in from out of town that they're not accustomed to the way that you guys talk to each other. So I had to address that. Like, you have to tone that down. If you guys want to go have a drink later and talk about all kinds of orgies and do all that stuff, go for it. But on set, let's try to be professional, because you don't know what impact that's going to have on somebody that you just met. There were, some of the cast members that I brought in were like Lena Minx Allure. Lena Minx Allure comes from the burlesque world. So they come from these genres and these realms where, it's sexy stuff and, taking off your clothes or whatever. But I never wanted anybody to get the impression that meant she needed to be treated a certain way, or a different way, or treated with a lack of respect. I have a zero. I don't tolerate that in my personal life. I don't tolerate that on set. That's just not what we're gonna do. So luckily, I've dealt with it when it needed to be dealt with, and that's been the end of it.
Yeah. So Joel, how You've been on different sets. I know you did Candy's Harem. That's in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
How is on-set treatment, like on something like that, which is obviously has risque? I feel 900 years old saying this, but content like is in Candy's Harem, contrary to the content that we do in our movies. Is the set run similar, or how exactly did you feel on that set versus like sets here?
Well, I mean, the set isn't run completely different, you know, and it's not like it's pornography or anything like that.
No, I'm not trying to say it's not. But there's never been any nudity in any of our stuff.
Yeah, there is nudity in it, and they did treat the actress with respect in all those scenes and everything. But there was also, I don't know, like I think the way that the atmosphere on that set, for me, Stephanie was in that movie too and had a great experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, the atmosphere was different. Like we would stay up all night. We were doing that after hours, and
You were up filming, or like when you were done filming, you guys would goof around?
no, we'd stay up all night filming because
okay.
it was after hours. The business where it was filmed.
Yep. The funeral home.
It was shot in a funeral home.
I don't know if I'm
yes.
supposed to say that though now.
I hope they're not listening to this podcast.
So anyway, yeah,
it was higher stress. I'm gonna say that.
Well, and your character in that movie was a lot more intense than mine was, so I think you had to kind of stretch your emotions and things farther than I did. I mean, I played a counselor who was pretty even keel. You were a psychopath.
Yeah, and we were saying earlier.
Kenji's very interested in this movie now.
Sounds awesome.
Like we were saying earlier, like when you play a role, it does bring out a part of yourself.
Right,
you
yeah.
know, I came out of that not ever wanting to act again. Honestly.
Oh goodness.
But I watch it now and I'm like, oh, it's not bad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was
difficult.
It was stressful, and it was a stressful character for me to play.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and you know, the one thing that I'll share is we've had experiences with people on set who acted inappropriate, and the way we always deal with that is the same way Kenjji does. He shared we have a zero tolerance towards that type of behavior, but the biggest problem is getting people to report those things because people generally are nice people. So if you're an actor watching this and something happens to you like that, tell somebody in authority. In fact, when we did our table reading for Queen of the City, the film we just did, we said at the thing, we pointed out who all the board members were, male and female, and talked to somebody if somebody acts inappropriately. Because when we shot The Iceman Cometh, we had a cast member who was extremely inappropriate in their behavior, and we wanted to make sure going into this that we didn't have that. And we have an absolute zero tolerance. Everybody on our set should know that they're valued, and they're there because they're an awesome actor, an awesome camera person, an awesome sound person. Whatever they do, they're there because they're valued, and they should be there. And so now we're going to tone down the serious stuff, and we're going to talk about. We're going to get to know our cast here a little bit. Not our cast, the people who are sitting around the table. And we're going to start with Kenjji. Kenjji, if you had to pick your favorite horror movie of all time, what would that be?
Favorite horror movie? Wow. What would be my favorite horror movie? The first movie that comes to mind is Homebound. It's either Homebound or Housebound. I always get that confused. Great movie. It's one of those kind of UK imports. I think it's Irish actually, but it has the kind of the Shaun of the Dead flavor, where it's a horror movie, but it's got its own slant to it. It's about a woman who she's a rough character. She kind of gets out of jail and she's on house arrest. She's got an ankle bracelet and she finds out that the house that she's living in is haunted.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But it takes a left turn from where normal horror movies would, and this is by no means a docile female character.
Yeah.
This chick is kick ass, and she's not dealing with it She's very, you know, brash and aggressive about dealing with this situation in her house, and it just makes for just a top fueled, like, just kick-ass movie all around. Still
Awesome.
should be on
Awesome.
Netflix still, yeah. But that's one of the things, like when I started doing Frankie, like that was one of the things that I really wanted for my project was, and strong female character might be cliche, because when I say strong female character, I don't mean necessarily a female character that has noble intentions. I don't feel like the female characters that I want in my films have to have this kind of moral compass where they have to kind of comply with, you know, the way that women are supposed to act. And that's why I liked Homebound so much, was because she was a felon. Like, she was a felon that ended up in a bad situation, and this is what she did with it. And that character, that kind of character, rang true for me. And when I started doing Frankie, I was basing it on kind of my experience with old monster movies, and the basic premise was that, you know, I watched all these old black and white horror movies, and there's this common thread where, like, women became dangerous and lethal when you gave them a brain. And that became like the monstrosity of women in movies of the 50s. Like, if you gave them a brain, if you gave them a voice, then they would go psycho and they would start killing people. So I said that'd be a great way to, like, really wrap a movie or wrap a story around that kind of character, that, you know, all of a sudden she gets smart and she realizes, yeah, you should really rise up against this system that's been suppressing you. And that's where Frankie came.
Nice. Awesome.
So, Joel, if you had to pick your favorite movie in the horror genre, other than what we were just talking about,
other than your own,
other than, you know, I'm kidding. That's your favorite. That's your favorite.
No, it could count, but yeah, my favorite horror movie. I don't know. I just saw the new It. I really liked that a lot. That was really good.
You are brave.
Yeah.
I'm too scared.
I like Stephen King. I like The Shining too. I'm not like a huge fan of horror movies, even though a lot of my writing kind of can take on that flavor. You know, I have a really dark thing going on in my head that you can probably say in my art, but I like horror movies that have a powerful story and that don't necessarily end with an ending that just makes you depressed about everything, you know, like where everybody dies. I don't really like that, and I don't like stuff where it's just torture for no reason. You know, I prefer stuff where it's pointing out the demons in your own head, you know, and helping you deal with them, hopefully, instead of just throwing them at you and it's a mess, you know. So,
Stephanie, do you have a favorite horror movie?
Well, I don't like horror really, although I do like Alfred Hitchcock. Rear Window is one of my favorites. It's probably in my top, definitely in my top 10. I also liked The Birds, but it's been a while since I've seen that one. But also, as far as suspense, this is another Hitchcock movie, Rebecca, which is based on a book. So I can't say that I really like horror, but I get a little more of a kick out of horror when it's got a comedic spin to it, you know, when it kind of pokes fun at those stereotypical things that happen in a horror movie, like, oh, somebody's chasing them, I'm just going to run straight like this. I'm not going to dart off to the side like, you know, there's a woods there, but I'm not going to go to the woods. I'm going to just keep running in the road where everyone can see me. You know, when they kind of find a way to spoof on that, then I find horror movies a little more watchable.
I can't remember the name of it. There's this horror movie from the early 80s that's about werewolves. The reason I like it, this is going to reveal a lot about my personality, because at the very end, the heroine of the movie turns into a werewolf.
The Howling.
and she looks like Benji.
Yeah. Like a sexy Chewbacca.
It is. It's the howling.
It's the howling.
It's the howling. It's the howling.
D. Wallace Stone. Yep.
And it's an awesome scene because she's sitting there and she's like on the news because she's a newscaster. And you're like, that's Benji.
It's
That's awesome.
Probably the worst werewolf makeup ever.
Yes.
such a pretty werewolf.
But I have to admit, I have a love for bad movies. Like Carnosaur. I love Carnosaur.
I've never even heard of that.
That's
Be grateful.
Was it T-Rex? Was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And, you know, we have, like, Paul Bales makes an appearance in Queen of the City, the producer of Sharknado. And I recently watched Sharknado, whatever, five or six. And I'm just thinking, when are they going to stop? But, because the first one, I think, had a heart to it.
Yep.
And I think, like, when you talk about bad movies that people can really, like, jump onto, like The Room, people say, oh, The Room is so bad, it's the worst movie ever. But that movie has a heart and a passion to it. And I think that's why people have noticed that film. And even Ed Wood's Plan 9 movie, same sort of deal. It might be terrible in execution, but there's good heart behind it. And I think if you're making a film, it's important to go in it with extreme passion. Because even if it's not the greatest content, that passion is going to come through. And, you know, like we're going here talking about our favorite movies in different genres. And the genre I'm gonna ask everyone to pick a genre and tell their favorite movie in that genre. And the genre that I'm gonna pick is westerns.
Okay.
And westerns, it boils down to two films for me: either Tombstone, which we parody 3 or 4 scenes in The Reckoning from Tombstone. It's a film that I really love, and it's a great film. It would be either that or the 1968 True Grit, just because I was raised on John Ford and John Wayne movies. I know John Ford didn't direct that, but John Wayne's in it, so it has to be awesome. So, Stephanie.
My favorite Western is definitely Dances with Wolves. That movie's in my top 5, for sure, if not my number 1. I kind of go back and forth depending on my current mood, but Dances with Wolves is definitely my favorite Western, for sure.
Yep. Joel.
I like Dances with Wolves a lot, but as far as like a traditional Western, like cowboys and everything, I would think of The Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, that's an outstanding film.
Yeah. Just a really great story, really unique characters, and it kind of challenges the genre a little bit. You know, he's not really heroic in a sense that you think of the cowboy hero as being, you know. So it's good.
Okay, I've got 3, because my first thought is to say I was an 80s kid. So as an 80s kid, it would have to be Young Guns.
I love that. Everyone always trashes that movie, but that's a very fun...
If you were there when it happened...
It's a fun movie.
How much fun were you having watching Young Guns?
Yes.
Young Guns, Silverado was also a favorite of mine back in the day.
Yep.
But most recently, and I'm not quite sure if this counts as a Western, but I think it is because of where it comes from, Django Unchained. I thought that movie was just so... and not... You know, I have mixed feelings about Quentin Tarantino, but there was something bold about what they tried to do with that movie at this time, you know, during, you know, wherever we are in history, that, you know, really bold stuff. Really bold stuff to have this guy, you know, running around shooting white people.
I think the filmmaker... And let's just talk about the whole everyone who made that film. You would have to be brave to make that film.
Right.
Because you know, as you're creating this content, especially, you know, you have Samuel L. Jackson, Quentin Tarantino.
Right. It's something that I wrestle with as a filmmaker, because there's like, you know, the era of Frankie is kind of like World War II era, and there's going to be a moment where I'm going to have to put somebody in a Nazi outfit, and that troubles me, because I mean, I'm obviously not going to be the guy wearing the swastika, but somebody's going to have to play that role, and I'm going to have a conversation with them like, you know, you have to really be aware, you know, that this might show up, you know, later on in your career or on social media or something like that. And it might need to be addressed. It might need to be explained. So I feel that same way about, you know, the character that DiCaprio played. You know, awful character.
Yes.
You know, awful character and taken out of context. You know, somebody could easily take, you know, some of the stuff that you said or some of the stuff that you did in that film and really hold that against you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, like really bold but a story that, you know, kind of needed to be told. Like just kind of, you know, if you really want to refresh the whole Western genre and kind of bring it of age, we need to touch on this stuff. That's kind of what was happening.
So when we shot The Prom with Honor, which is a film we shot a couple years ago that no one should ever watch, it was when we were still learning. Well, anyway, when we were shooting it, one of the character is a Nazi. And the actor, I'm not going to say who it is or anything, but we gave him his costume. There's no swastikas, and he goes, "Where are all my swastikas?"
Right.
We're like, well, we're not going to give.
We're not going to do that.
Because one thing is I don't want to have to buy those.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Right.
It's really tricky.
So you're just going to go on there and you're going to speak. And we dub his voice over in German.
Right, give you the accent, the subtitles.
Anyway.
You get the picture.
But I think it's you know, when you're making a film, that's something you really have to consider.
You have to commit to it.
Because the term Nazi or putting a Nazi in your film really changes the dynamics. Just like putting a slave owner in your film changes those dynamics.
Definitely.
And right now, we're gonna end it by everyone telling us your favorite film. And it's so hard to pick this. I know for me it changes almost hourly. But if you had to pick right now with the mindset you're in, a film that's message really stuck with you and you would consider that your favorite, what would it be? And let's start with you, Kenjji.
Mad Max Fury Road. I've always been a Mad Max fan. I've always been gleefully fond of the overt gay sensibilities of that film. I've always thought that there's a great juxtaposition between the kind of overt homosexuality in that film, yet what that film is intended to be. Like, it's supposed to be a car movie for guys.
Yeah.
But, you know, for most of the movie, this guy's got literally a twink strapped on his back on this motorcycle. And, you know, the sergeant of the police force has got an ascot and he's bare-chested. And there's just something really... I'm a weird guy. I like movies that make people uncomfortable. And if you watch Mad Max out of context, you could be really uncomfortable. You say, "Hey, what's going on there?" And I love that stuff. But anyway, Fury Road, just in terms of messaging, the fact that this guy, I think he was like 70, that directed this film.
Yeah, George Miller.
George Miller.
Yeah.
That he can make a film of that caliber with that pacing and just something that dynamic at that age. Yeah. And really only having done, I think this is like his fourth film. He did the Mad Max, and then he did Babe, and then he did Fury Road.
Yeah.
That inspires me. Like, cause I'm
Babe Pig in the City.
Babe Pig in the City. Wow. So I'm pushing 40, and I'm getting to the end, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm done. I guess I'm done with the whole comic book movie making thing. And then I look at George Miller, and I'm like, no, you can, if you still want to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, do it.
There's
he
no
did expiration date.
So,
in fact, we were just talking about that before we started rolling. That like 80 is the new 60, and so 70 is the new 40.
It's new 40. Yeah. So I still got like 30 years.
Well,
to make my movie.
Well, I'm 50 and I'm just getting started.
Right, just getting started.
So Joel, what would you pick as a movie that's really outstanding?
AI. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a movie that
Jude Law.
Yeah, Jude Law is in it. Haley Joel Osment, and it was a Kubrick,
and then
film.
Spielberg took it over.
Yeah, because it was Kubrick never like developed it all the way, and like they shared it back and forth, and then Spielberg took it over. So it's a really interesting fusion. But I think it's a really cool. It's sci-fi, and it's a really it's just a really interesting philosophical movie that looks at artificiality and what it is to be human and what love is, you know, and but more than that, what existence is, you know, like what mark you leave on the world, and so.
Yeah, it's a film that I've never seen, but I'm definitely gonna check it out. The reason I never saw it was because I heard the whole thing about how Kubrick had it, then Spielberg took it over, then I just thought it'd be too much all over the place, so I never bothered.
Oh, it's good. It's consistent, I think.
I was also drinking that week. So, Stephanie, if you had to pick a movie that was really like something you would always recommend to people, I might call it your favorite, what would that be?
Okay, well, like I had mentioned earlier, I love movies. I have a lot of favorites, and I said that Dances with Wolves is my favorite Western. At current mood and my mood most of the time, that's probably my favorite movie. Probably my favorite movie of all time is Dances with Wolves. I like it because I do like movies that are about real events. I usually do like movies that are about history. I feel that it was one of or possibly the first movie to show the Western expansion and not put Native Americans in a negative light. The older Westerns tended to do that, I think. They pinned Native Americans as the bad guys. So this showed the more accurate and completely new perspective on what the westward expansion reality was like for them. It has elements that I love in movies. It has beautiful cinematography. The landscape is amazing. I love movies with horses. People riding horses, it's got that. I love the history. I love the realness of it. It's got romance, but the romance, although it is one of the main elements, it's not like the only element. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Excellent story. It is a long movie. I watched it when I was in high school. Oops, I just am aging myself. I'm 29. I said that, I'm 29. So I watched it on TV. It didn't feel like 3 hours. I mean, I remember talking to another girl from my high school, and she was like, "Didn't you think that movie was so long?" And I was like, "I don't know. I wasn't watching my clock. I didn't pay any attention. I just thought it was the best movie ever." Seriously. And still to this day, if I am kind of home alone for the weekend and I scroll through and see that movie on, 9 times out of 10, I'll watch it. Even though I know I'm in for 3 hours of watching a movie, I don't care. I'll watch that movie.
Yeah, you know, this is an interesting question because, like I said, it changes a lot. But one movie it always comes back to is Fight Club. I really like Fight Club, and the reason I like Fight Club is because you're watching the whole movie, and it's only effective the first time you watch it.
Right.
You watch the whole movie and you're thinking a certain thing, and then if you're not really paying attention, there's a big reveal towards the end. And I just think it's done really, because before I saw that movie, I couldn't stand Brad Pitt. I thought he's just this pretty boy, he has no talent.
Right.
But after I watched that movie, I really started to respect him as an actor, sort of like Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. I couldn't stand Tom Cruise before The Last Samurai, but and both of those movies are two movies that I really like, but it's so hard to pick one movie because I've been so entwined in this movie that we made for the past year that usually when someone asks me what my favorite movie is, I say Queen of the City.
Sure.
Of course, absolutely.
But it's because it's something that I don't really get an escape from because I'm always looking at it and evaluating it. But yeah, Fight Club's a movie that I was. Pulp Fiction is another one in that category, and the 1967 Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Those are my.
Yeah, those
You know, it was funny because I was talking to a coworker about the War for the Planet of the Apes when it just came out, and she put it all together and explained my frustrations with that movie completely.
Okay.
She said, I don't have time for a bunch of naked monkeys doing sign language. And I thought it was hilarious, but it also gets to the point of what my sort of frustrations were with it. But
with the modern versions?
The modern version, yep.
Yeah,
the prequel, I guess.
Because they only had like 2 chimpanzees that could speak, and the rest were all naked monkeys doing sign language.
Yeah, and in the original movies, they all were very intelligent monkeys, right?
Yeah.
And they wore clothes, didn't they?
The original movies is probably, I don't know, a good generation after the prequels that we're seeing now. So a good 30 years. Somehow they learned to speak within that length of time. But
so, but that's not saying that the new War for the Planet of the Apes isn't an excellent movie, because it is. Woody Harrelson's great in that movie. It's a really good movie, but yeah. And anyway. Well, we're going to wrap it up right now, and we're going to wrap it up by each of our guests telling you where you once again, where you can get their art. All right. Kenjji.
Best place to find Frankie stuff and to find my stuff is just on Facebook. It's easy. Everybody has Facebook. Facebook.com/FrankieTV. Stuff is on YouTube. Stuff is on Instagram, but just go to Facebook or go to Kenjji.com. And there it is.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. My art is also on Facebook. Facebook.com/art by Joel Young. So easy to remember. All one word. Art by Joel Young, all in one word.
Yep.
So.
Cool.
I do have a Stephanie Skinner Actress Facebook page. A lot of links to like my short films and stuff I've done with Phoenix Reborn Films, and some links to my audiobooks can be found there. So feel free to, it's not set up like a fan page where you just like it. If you want to send me a friend request on my actress page, feel free to do that. I also have, a lot of my work has been with this guy, so if you go to the Phoenix Reborn Films webpage, you can find a lot of stuff there as well.
Yep. If you go to Phoenix Reborn Films, all one word, on YouTube, you can get a lot of our trailers. You can get Being Super, which is a movie. It's a great movie, and you should take 28 minutes and watch it.
It's soon to be on Amazon Prime,
and we're
right?
working right now towards getting our stuff on Amazon Prime. And once again, the YouTube channel is Phoenix Reborn Films. We'll put the link right down here, although it's probably not here because it's not edited yet.
Somewhere down here.
Somewhere here, you're going to see Phoenix
Links
Reborn
right
Film,
here.
the YouTube channel, the same place where you saw this show. And I just want to wrap things up. Thank everybody for joining me tonight, and invite you to come back in a couple weeks when we'll have Chuck Bentley on the air, and Laura Henderson, and a guest we're still working on. But that's how it goes when you're first starting. So
Can I
thank
come back
you.
and wear a mustache?
Yeah. Yes.
Who should we talk about being on the Lori Moore show next week?
Oh yes. Next on Halloween. That brings back memories. Anyway, next Tuesday, I think it is, or Wednesday, whatever. On the 31st, Steph and I will be appearing on the Lori Moore Show. And you're going to see something that you're going to see right now for the first time ever. Coming up is the world premiere of the trailer for Queen of the City.
Woo!
So
awesome.
Check it out, and we'll see you in 2 weeks or a month or whenever. At some time, there'll be another show up here. So it's at least going to be a month. It might be 2 weeks. So I'll see you all later. And once again, always be creating.
If killing you is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Exercise caution and let sleeping giants stay asleep. There is one known as the Uzo Rebellion. To his dearest love, wake his rage, and your reign will blow away like dust in the wind.
Joker and Harley are taking over Gotham. They're turning all of the villains into clowns.
Really? That seems forced. I mean, I hope we develop the storyline.
Boss!
Bruce, just wait for us.
No. My whole life has been guided by action. Every time I think I can move on, the city draws me back in.
I want your blood. I want your soul. And I want them both right now.
How about you? Oh, good. Nice decision making.
Get out now. You're all gonna die.
Run away, you dog! And you tell all the other dogs the law is coming. You tell them that I'm coming, and I'm bringing hell with me. You hear me? Hell's coming. You're all finished! Okay, clowns. You got a fight coming. It's coming today.
Don't want to be afraid, hard not to hesitate, but we can't wait to be the change. It's not too late, free from hate. Think of the future that we could create. Face the facts today. There's a better way. Take one step back and say there's